If you read the reviews on Wargame Red Dragon on Steam, they tend to be very positive. However, there are usually two main complaints: the inaccessibility and the toxic community. While the latter is usually exaggerated in the first place, both problems can be worked around. In this video, I want to show new players how to get into this amazing game step by step, while still having an enjoyable experience. There will be no gameplay advice. If you're looking for that, there are plenty of guides in the description. If you have never played a wargame title before, you will need to learn some basic game mechanics first. Unit deployment, capturing sectors, reinforcements, and some crucial hotkeys. The best way to start off are the campaigns. You won't have to bother with stuff like deck building and can purely focus on getting used to how the game plays. If you struggle with the campaigns, as most people do at first, don't hesitate to watch some YouTubers playthroughs. By doing this, you are not cheating yourself, as you can learn a lot from seeing how specific battles can be won. Just make sure that you are able to win them yourself afterwards. There are a variety of Let's Plays of the campaigns, and I'd recommend you just go with the one you enjoy the most. If you don't have any preferences, I can recommend the Shermanator, who played a lot of the campaigns twice. In his second run, he has a pretty good understanding of how to beat the campaigns efficiently, while still remaining noob friendly in his commentary. Make sure you beat at least the first campaign before you move on. If you want to play more of the campaigns, just be aware that the Chinese campaign is much harder than it looks, as it is the only one where the AI has a serious tech advantage over you. It is arguably the hardest one of all, so I'd recommend you skip this one at first. Once you feel comfortable with controls, you will have to make your first giant leap, the jump into multiplayer. The easiest mode for new players are so-called tacticals. These are 10v10 matches on a 1v1 map with drastically reduced starting points and income. Therefore, each player will only get very few units, making micro a lot easier. It is a very nice game mode to get a feeling for multiplayer, as humans play very differently from AI. It will allow you to get into deck building and to get to know new units step by step, both by using and versing them. If you want to know how to get into playing tacticals, you can check out my video on it. Also, the YouTuber Stealth17 has a lot of tactical gameplay on his channel. Tacticals are nice to start out, as both you and your opponent's capabilities are reduced. At first this may be very helpful, but the more you improve, the more it holds you back. As you won't be able to afford all the units for a solid force composition, you will have to rely on random teammates with which you can barely communicate. In the long run, this is a recipe for failure. Therefore, it is in your own interest to move on to games with regular income and less players. Regular income means that you can buy all kinds of units at the same time and thereby learn how to effectively use combined arms, which is the most crucial aspect of being a good wargame player. And having less players means that you have more of an impact in the game. In the long term, this is quite helpful for your motivation. You will lose less games because your teammates are useless, and if you get a close victory, it will be down to your performance and therefore much more rewarding. However, maps smaller than 10v10s usually require a player to hold multiple fronts, which at this stage might be too much of a challenge. In that case, just play with more players than intended. Depending on the map layout, you can play a 3v3 on a 2v2 map or a 2v2 on a 1v1 map. This way you can focus on covering all aspects on one front, while not having to worry too much about what's going on the rest of the map. If you want to know how you have to adapt your playstyle for this step, I made a video on that as well, which I will link at the end. Once you have played your fair share of these regular games on small maps with more players than intended, you're ready for the final step: playing 1v1s. Because of the map size, a lot of players are afraid of this game mode, but you have to keep in mind that the enemy faces the same limitations. Sure, you will lose a lot in the beginning, but if you analyze your replays, you will improve incredibly quickly. 1v1s is where Wargame is at its best, at least from a competitive perspective. The amount of valid options in each game is enormous and allows you to play with different strategies. At this stage, you will especially learn a lot about the meta. After you won your first couple of 1v1s, you will have truly overcome the initial learning curve. Of course, you can always improve, but I guarantee you that you will be able to beat many players who have dozens of hours more than you, but never bothered going this far. If you have reached a stage, you can confidently play any kind of game mode you want and be sure that you will deliver a solid performance. So in conclusion, here you have your graph on your wargame career. Basically, you should start off with campaigns where you learn your controls, your basic mechanics. Once you have that down, you won't profit a lot anymore, so you should move on to playing tacticals, where you can gradually increase your unit knowledge. And once you feel you have a good grasp on deck building and units, you should move on to playing 2v2s on 1v1 maps, where you can learn how you properly implement the use of combined arms. And once you have that down, definitely move on to playing proper 1v1s, where you can learn deeper elements of the game like strategies and the meta. You will realize that the first 3 stages are mostly about improving your game knowledge, so that means controls, knowing units, and learning game mechanics. And you will obviously still always do that, even if you play 1v1s, but it will be less important and it will be much more about the meta, while at the same time, obviously, your mechanical skill will improve, so mostly micro. Lastly, to ensure the games you play are enjoyable, it is advisable that you do your best to avoid toxic players. Don't worry, the majority is usually stuck in war chat anyways, and the rest predominantly plays 10v10 matches, but you will always find some of them in all kinds of games. So unfortunately you can't avoid them completely, but there are a couple of ways of minimizing contact. For one, after you met some of them, you should definitely mute them, and you should do so because it's very easy to change your name in Wargame and therefore very hard to keep track of people. This way your mute list uh, acts as a kind of tool where you can track people you don't want to play against, or at least be wary of. Secondly, you can host your own games for anywhere up to 4v4s, and being the host of a game gives you the power to kick people or mute them or ban them, which you should do if you can see from the set card that they're just blatantly trying to pub stomp. So if you have a really high win rate, for example, or a high level, or if they are on your mute list, obviously. And lastly, thirdly, you should definitely join the Wargame Bootcamp Discord. It's a very nice place where you will find a lot of people to play arranged matches with, so you can be sure you won't be healer rushed, for example. You can also ask for advice and coaching, so Bootcamp will help you become a better player and ensuring you have fun at the same time. Definitely check it out, the referral link will be in the description. I hope at least some of this stuff was helpful for you. You can find a lot of further guides in the description. I would like to thank Razman, who is an amazing content creator. In case you don't know him, you should definitely check him out, for letting me use his gameplay in this video. And if you have any further questions, let me know in the comments. I'll try my best to respond to them. Other than that, have a great day.